Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi. Last day of November 2020. I'm Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway where it's raining. Desultory week ahead. People are really not in the Christmas mood because there isn't going to be much Christmas at all. At yesterday's Mass, I went to the least attended Mass. I'm being very, very cautious about this. The pastor preached a sermon about how maybe we'll really have Advent this year because all the Christmas parties will be canceled. I thought that was rather a different way of looking at what most people consider to be a downer. This is usually the season to make merry, right? And I know traditional Adventists are always, this is a season like Lent, but it really isn't a season like Lent. It's a season to make merry. Even among Christians, it's always been, that's why the Advent calendar exists. That's why Christmas trees exist. That's why people have their parties and their family time. But one good old fashioned pastor up there saying, great, no parties. And I thought, no, you're really out of step. Everybody needs some parties in this country and this world right now. They're going to be Zoom Christmas parties, I guess. It really is going to be the oddest Christmas. For those of us who aren't really in love with the whole idea of going off to the Christmas party, it's not so bad. But for the rest of us, you can all make donations, right? Instead, go to your office and say, hey, we're not going to have a Christmas party. Why don't we give all the money we would have spent on booze and bad pastry and give it to Angel Tree? Run over today and over at hughhewitt.com. Let's just have the office make an Angel Tree donation. Would you? Your gift will go help kids who do not have a mom or dad at home this Christmas because they're in jail, in prison, serving 25 to life or 5 years or 3 years or whatever, but they're not home. And Angel Tree takes care of them through the year, but they provide Christmas. Your gift will help someone like Kevin, who was only 5 when his mom was incarcerated at Rikers Island in New York. But he says all these years, his most precious Christmas memories came from Angel Tree volunteers.
It was cool to know that in some form of a way, she was still looking out for me, even though she wasn't there. I had hope and could definitely still feel that love and that bond between us. I think it's so important to support Angel Tree. You have no idea the hope that you're instilling in them just by that simple gesture of them receiving a gift from the parent, even though the parent is not there.
That's why Angel Tree, don't do a Christmas party, just support Angel Tree. Go to hughhewitt.com and hit that banner at the very top. You'll be joining thousands of people who've already signed up. Thank you. I'm impressed by how many of my listeners want to help, and God bless you all. Look, the biggest story of the day is that the virus is raging through the country, but the vaccine is coursing through it as well. It's not legal yet to give it to anybody. That should come this week, but it is being pre-positioned and flown everywhere from both Moderna and Pfizer. And Anthony Fauci was on this week with Martha Raddatz. He was on Meet the Press yesterday, gave the same message everywhere. It's a bad month in terms of infections. Lots of people are going to get it who aren't being cautious, but it's a good month. He said on Meet the Press, pretty much most of all frontline workers will have the vaccine by the end of December. My research toxicologist, the official research toxicologist of the Hugh Hewitt Show, retired PhD, said all medical workers will have it by the end of December. He's hopeful everyone who wants it will have it by the end of March. He'll take either Moderna or Pfizer. He's glad that we're going to have the choice of the mRNA vaccines as opposed to the AstraZeneca vaccine, but the AstraZeneca vaccine will be useful in the third world where they don't have the refrigeration. More on that coming up. But here's just one clip of Anthony Fauci on Meet the Press yesterday with Martha Raddatz, cuts number 3.
Well, Martha, that's a good question. We get asked it all the time. We say it not being facetiously as a soundbite or anything, but, close the bars and keep the schools open is what we really say. Obviously, you don't have one size fits all, but as I said in the past, and as you accurately quoted me, the default position should be to try as best as possible within reason to keep the children in school or to get them back to school. The best way to ensure the safety of the children in school is to get the community level of spread low. So if you mitigate the things that you know are causing spread in a very, very profound way, in a robust way, if you bring that down, you will then indirectly and ultimately protect the children in the school, because the community level is determined how things go across the board. So my feeling would be the same thing. If you look at the data, the spread among children and from children is not really very big at all, not like one would have suspected. So let's try to get the kids back, but let's try to mitigate the things that maintain and just push the kind of community spread that we're trying to avoid. And those are the things.
I am not a epidemiologist, nor did I stay at a Holiday Inn last night. I'm not a virologist, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night. But from the fact that I was the first guy to sound the alarm on the virus in January to the fact that in February I said close everything but the schools. I've always said keep the schools open. Doesn't hit the kids. Does not affect the kids. They can transmit it, but you still got to go to the younger teachers, keep the fragile teachers at home, but keep the kids in school because the impact on them is terrible. Everyone's kind of got that message. It's not, and Dr. Fauci was wrong about that at the beginning, but he's right about it now. And it's okay to have been wrong when we didn't know anything about anything, and it's right now to be right. So just lay on your school board. They ought to really not have an extended Christmas holiday. They ought to be making up for lost time. I was on Meet the Press yesterday. Here's cut number one. Chuck asked me about whether or not I'm using the radio program to make sure that no one is suffering under the delusion that President Trump won and President-elect Biden didn't. Cut number one.
Hugh Hewitt, your listeners, they don't want to believe the facts that are on the ground. Do you feel like you confront your listeners enough that don't want to believe the facts, or do you think you could do more?
Oh, every day I talk to people who believe that there's massive fraud in Georgia, and I tell them no, and they've got to get out and vote for David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, who I support. But I think what's going on is an undervaluation of the voters' intelligence again. They're very sophisticated. They know President Trump is, as of today, planning on running for election in 2024 against President-elect Biden. And he's doing things consistent with that. And I think he is going to spend the next 4 years underscoring the big successes of his tenure, including Operation Warp Speed. It was great news what Dr. Fauci said, that most of the frontline people will be vaccinated by the end of December. He's going to emphasize his military rebuild, the Supreme Court. He's going to emphasize conservative realism versus the Chinese Communist Party and the Abraham Accords. So he's just setting up a campaign that's already begun. And I wouldn't be surprised, Chuck, if on or before the inauguration of President Biden, he announces Trump 2024 is formed, and it's off to the races.
Look, he announced his re-election campaign on Inauguration Day in 2017.
That is my first cut. My second cut comes a little bit later in the show when we're talking about a different subject. Cut number two.
Hugh Hewitt, I feel like that there's going to be some sort of, I don't know if it's a reckoning or what do you want to call it on the right, where you're going to have some who say, hey, there's plenty of African Americans that would like to support conservatives or Republicans, but the branding, thanks to Donald Trump, makes it very hard to have that conversation. Do you think that changes in a post-Trump world?
I think it's already changing. Professor Dyson noted in the first panel segment that Donald Trump increased his numbers with African Americans significantly. And when you look at the biggest winners on Tuesday night a month ago were Kevin McCarthy in the House and Mitch McConnell in the Senate. And they're going to look at 16 Republican women who got elected. They're going to look at 2 African American congressmen. They're going to look at, Michelle Steele in Orange County, Young Kim in Orange County, California. They're going to want to diversify the party. And I haven't read the professor's new book. I've read Tears We Cannot Stop, his other book, and I would recommend McCarthy and McConnell and every Republican read that, and that Donald Trump, as he prepares for 2024, build on that 50% gain that he made by putting his arm around Tim Scott and other people who speak for African-American Republicans and Latino Republicans and say, what worked, what didn't, let's build on the former. That is the extent of what I said on Meet the Press yesterday, but I'm glad I had a chance to say it. When we come back, Donald Trump was on Fox News with Maria Bartiromo. He said a lot more. We'll play what the president had to say yesterday. Hey, it's Christmas. We will be playing Christmas music for the whole month, even though it's not December yet. It's after Thanksgiving. We go to Christmas music on the Hugh Hewitt Show. So buckle up. 'Tis the season to be jolly, whether you're a Republican or Democrat or none of the above. Stay tuned to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Birch Gold Group.
This is Owen Strand for Townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Jennifer in Tustin, California. Hi.
Hi, Dennis. I love the fun on your show. More importantly, the clarity.
Yes. Well, if you like fun and clarity, I'm your man.
Excellent.
I'm your other man. You may be married or have a boyfriend.
Yes.
So I fully.
I am. I have a wonderful man.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm your other man.
Great.
Right.
I've heard you say. My question is, I've heard you say several times of late on the show that you would not take the COVID vaccine, and I feel the same way myself. But I'm wondering, what will I do if the COVID vaccine is mandatory? In the same way that, child vaccines are mandatory in many states. Have you thought about that?
I have thought about it. It's a real dilemma.
Okay.
If they don't allow you to go on an airplane without proof of a vaccine, I would have to weigh not being able to travel and give speeches and do my cruises I cannot live a life without travel. Yes, exactly. It's
right.
See, I want everybody listening who doesn't know, I've taken every vaccine offered, and my kids have taken all of them. I never had any interest in vaccines. I just took them. But I don't trust the medical establishment any longer. They, like the New York Times, they have lost me.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are in some sort of social gathering. And he's put out a statement saying, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. We're all gonna do better.
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated.
And he started counting them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe he didn't realize that he had exceeded the number. First, he sends his children to in-person private school while attacking school choice and keeping public schools closed throughout California. Now he attends a private gathering while telling Californians to do otherwise.
Got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt on November 30th. I warned you, I'm a sucker for Christmas music. Andy Williams especially. Now, I'm a little bit hoarse because the Cleveland Browns are 8-3. I'm sure many of you watched yesterday as they made a game with the Jacksonville Jaguars a little bit closer than it needed to be. Well, a lot closer than it needed to be. But first time since 1994, yes, I will repeat that. The first time since 1994, the Cleveland Browns are 8-3. I'm wearing my Browns jersey this morning, well, my Browns pullover, in the studio to celebrate that which I really don't know how to react to the Browns being 9-4. I wasn't even on the air on this show when the Browns were 9-4. I didn't know Dwayne when the Browns were 8-3. Excuse me, I'm projecting 2 weeks ahead, and that's because we play the Giants and the Titans, and so it's almost certainly going to be 9 games, maybe 10-3 is possible. We have to beat the Titans, but the Giants, and then the Jets, ha ha ha. Look, Donald Trump was on with Maria Bartiromo. Before we go to his conversation about the election, I want to give you the keystone of what he said yesterday. Cut number 4, he's talking to Maria Bartiromo about Operation Warp Speed.
And even now, the stock market just hit an all-time high during a pandemic. And what did I do? I came up with vaccines that people would have for 5 years, and we have them. They're going to be distributed in 2 weeks. I mean, think of what we've done. And nobody's done it like this. And we're doing much better than Europe. By the way, you never hear about Europe. We're doing better than the rest of the world. We're doing better. But we have 2 vaccines. We're coming up with another one. Johnson & Johnson's coming up with one. We'll have 4 or 5 great vaccines 4 or 5 years ahead of schedule. People hardly talk about that. And they'll try and say that Biden came up with the vaccines.
No, those vaccines will be in people's arms well before the president-elect becomes the president. And I don't think actually, Ron Klain's a smart guy who's the incoming chief of staff. He's like Mark Meadows. They're both very smart people. And I don't think he's going to change a thing. I really don't. I don't think they're going to change a thing. They're going to, switch out everybody at the table, not Tony Fauci. I don't think Deborah Birx will go anywhere. But they're going to, Jake Sullivan's going to replace Robert O'Brien on the task force, and Vice President Harris will replace Vice President Pence. But the supply chain, the logistical rollout of the vaccines will be well advanced by January 20th. Some of you will have it by then. And it's all because of Operation Warp Speed, which is a scientific and logistical miracle. It's absolutely, I alluded to this on Meet the Press yesterday. When they build the Trump Library, and they will build the Trump Library, there will be 4 major, maybe 5 major aspects to it. Number 1 will be Operation Warp Speed. A killer virus arrives from the Chinese Communist Party, courtesy of their silence and the WHO's complicity, and the United States leads the free world to battle it back and defeat it. The Abraham Accords, which has brought peace to the Middle East, I hope Saudi Arabia signs up before the president leads, but they're having meetings as we spoke last week, and they're going to continue. The conservative realism that the president's foreign policy is embodied has confronted the Chinese Communist Party. I cannot believe it. There's a story in the New York Times this morning about Apple and Nike battling a bill in Congress that will make it illegal for American companies to import forced labor manufacturers from China, where the Uyghurs are imprisoned in labor camps. I can't believe anyone would oppose that, but some people are. So the realism and conservative foreign policy will be one of the great rooms in the Trump Library. And then, of course, the Supreme Court and the other federal judges. There are lots of other accomplishments. The First Step Act, the reform of the Veterans Administration, the tax cuts, the economic growth, the regulatory rollback. There's so much that got done in 4 years. The library will be one room after the other of accomplishments. And I really do believe that right now left-wing media is sort of playing up pandemic fears so that they will create the impression that the pandemic was raging and then Team Biden calmed it. No, it will actually have been dealt with by January 20th. More Donald Trump yesterday with Maria Bartiromo when we come back. Don't go anywhere, America, except over to the Angel Tree banner at the top of HughHewitt.com and come right back here. On this November 30th, you can make a child's Christmas right now by heading over to the Angel Tree banner. Don't go to a Christmas party. Don't give away a stupid gift. Make a donation and hand out cards to your coworkers saying you gave the money that you were going to do for the Secret Santa to Angel Tree. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
A woman who treats developmentally disabled patients. She said, I haven't been able to see my patients in person since March because of the virus. But right after the election, one of my clients said that he voted for Biden but didn't want to. He told me that he said Biden won because Biden would make his Social Security payments go down. He was sad that Biden won. I asked him why he voted for Biden, if he was worried about that, and he said that one of the helpers just came in and filled out his ballot for Biden for him. Bombshell voter fraud revelation in Wisconsin. To the best of our knowledge or the intelligence we have provided, no FBI investigation, no DOJ investigation. This is News Talks 1130.iheart.com. Disability Service Coordinator blows whistle on vote fraud in group homes called granny farming. We have long been talking about that here, which would correlate with the 1,774% increase that we saw for people over the age of 90 registering during a pandemic in battleground states. So Rudy Giuliani laid out 9 key points. The first of which was observers were allegedly prevented from watching mail-in ballots from being open. This is the easiest point to prove of all the different allegations out there, and it's unconstitutional. Giuliani said that many mail-in ballots were opened without observers being able to check that they were properly signed, a key protection against fraud. Those votes, he said, were, quote, null and void, especially where the envelopes had been discarded, making recounts useless.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Can we talk about Cortez? Yes, let's talk about AOC. Your response, you have been hitting hard with your amazing videos, the insanity of political correctness, of cancel culture. Does cancel culture, is it adequate enough a phrase when we're talking about AOC tweeting out that it's time to make lists of Trump supporters?
Okay, tag me in, Sebi. Can I go off? Tag me in, can I?
You can go off.
Yes, okay. First of all, I don't take her that seriously because let's be real, I don't think she can read that well to be making any lists I'd be worried about. Plus, she is the dumbest human being I've ever met or seen on the internet. I haven't met her. She's so stupid, she probably thinks that COVID-19 is Elon Musk's new kid. She is so stupid, she thinks that Pfizer is a mumble rapper and we need to learn his TikTok dances. AOC is so dumb, she thinks that the Bitcoin bull run is an actual event and we need to save the bulls. I don't know how to process her level of stupid, so I just laugh at her.
Those are some good lines. Look, she is risible, she is funny. I'm not sure those are the coolest dance moves I've ever seen.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Millions are praying. Millions from around the world are praying for this election, which is obviously not yet settled. What do you see happening right now that people like me might be unaware of? What do you, being where you are and being close to the center, what do you see cooking?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt that this election, I don't use this word lightly, was stolen. President Donald Trump outperformed every part of the country that was not a focal point for Joe Biden to get enough votes electorally through the Electoral College to get over the top. So
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. On November 30th, the Christmas music begins here on the Hugh Hewitt Show and stays until January the 2nd. But of course, it's Cyber Monday. Everybody shops online. The trouble is with Cyber Monday, it actually started on Amazon Prime Day 3 weeks ago. Black Friday was not really Black Friday. It was about 50% of normal, as people are just not going to the malls, and we can understand that. But let me do a market check for everyone, brought to you by Birch Gold. I always say at the Christmas season, if you can afford it, give your children and your grandchildren an American Eagle or a Canadian Maple Leaf or a Krugerrand or something like that. If you can afford it, rather than a bunch of presents that they will break and throw away and forget and put at the garage sale. They'll never lose and they'll never forget who gave them their little gold hoard in their safety deposit box. Gold this morning is way down. It's at $1,771 an ounce. And again, it doesn't matter. When you buy gold, you don't buy gold to trade it. You buy gold to own it for 30 years. And that's why Birch Gold Specialty is turning over a portion of your retirement, 10 to 25% of your IRA or 401k, into a precious metals IRA or 401k. They take the money you give them, and they buy the equivalent amount of gold and silver, and they put it into a depository, and there it sits for you until you sell it 30 years down the road, and it's always your anchor against collapsing currencies and market panics. And I think it will be way up because I think we have to have inflation here. Eventually, we have to pay the price for diluting the currency in the latest three crises we've had since the 2008 stock market collapse and the 2001 terrorist attack. And now we've got, in the last 20 years, we've had three crises that we've dealt with through massive fiscal stimulus, massive monetary stimulus. And eventually that creates inflation. It just has to. Otherwise, everything everyone has learned for 50 years is wrong, and I don't believe it is. The Dow on Friday was up 37 points. The NASDAQ was up 114 as they realized Black Friday was really the first part of Cyber Monday. And the S&P was up 8. This morning overseas, England up a little bit, Germany up a little bit. We don't know what will happen here in the United States. I look at the trading that happened on Friday, and it looks like we're back to the recognition that people's buying habits have changed forever. And while we all be back to work, everyone will be back normal, I believe, by April because of the vaccines. We'll be at 95% normal activity by April. And I'm going with my toxicologist who speaks to me candidly and has read all knows drug rollouts, et cetera, that brick and mortar stores will never fully recover. And the Costco's, the Targets, the Amazon, I own Amazon, I always disclose that. All of the online stuff will never go back to where they were in January of last year. The change is forever. So President Trump was on with Maria Bartiromo and said this about the election, cut number 5.
We won the election easily. There's no way Joe Biden got 80 million votes. I just said there's no way Joe Biden beat Barack Obama in the black communities of various cities And then he did very badly compared to Obama in other cities throughout the United States. There's no way it happened. This election was a fraud. It was a rigged election.
You see, now the president has made that assertion. You've got to be able to prove that. Unfortunately, there is no proof of that. I don't believe that. I believe the president is discounting his impact on American politics. He's the greatest thing for representative democracy ever. He got more people to vote. 74 million people voted for him. 80 million people voted for Joe Biden. And that is far and away the most percentage of the electorate. I think about 65 to 66% of the electorate of eligible voters voted, which is the highest turnout since 1900, before women had the vote. That is really, really, really remarkable how many people voted. And Joe Biden did get 11 million more votes than Barack Obama got at his highest. That's not population growth. All right. What he's pointing to is the implausibility of that. If anyone predicted that, no one, again, it's because all the polling is shot. That's why there's no polling in Georgia, where the Senate races are underway. All the polling failed. They didn't see this turnout coming. They didn't see the numbers coming. They didn't predict the right races. They said Trump was behind 17 in Wisconsin. It was a tie race in Wisconsin. So they're not polling in Georgia, but I know what's going on in Georgia. In fact, Kelly Loeffler was on OAN this weekend, Senator Loeffler from Georgia, talking about her opponent, Raphael Warnock, cut number 12.
Raphael Warnock has suggested that we need to repent for the Second Amendment, that it's not something that we should have, these type of rights that we should have. He's called people who own guns crazy people. He supports universal background checks, and he's endorsed by all the major anti-gun groups, gun confiscation groups, and he has their strong endorsement. And so, these are, in his own words, these are his affiliations. This is what he's working on. This is Chuck Schumer's agenda to take Georgia and then change America. And that starts with taking away our God-given, our constitutional rights, including the Second Amendment, including the right to life. I mean, the list goes on of rights that he intends to change for America.
Meanwhile, the other race, John Ossoff, the trust fund socialist who's AOC light, who is running against David Perdue, the senator from Georgia, has a great record. David Perdue is a great senator. And David Perdue won by 88,000 votes. He barely missed avoiding a runoff completely. And he's actually coasting here. And Kelly Loeffler is coasting. If you add up all the Republican votes in the race that has come down to Loeffler and Warnock, versus all the Democratic votes, and then you add into the Democrats, the Greens and the Independents. The Republicans all beat the Greens and the Independents and the Democrats. I think these are not close races, but we've got to act like they are ridiculously close. We have to get everyone registered by the end of this week. December 7th is the last day you can register if you did not vote in November in Georgia. And you can't move to Georgia and vote. You can volunteer, you can contribute, you cannot vote there if you don't live there. But John Ossoff went on CNN, his safe space. He talked with Dana Bash. Now, Dana is a real journalist. She actually is a very, very fine journalist over at CNN. And she asked him pointed questions. Here, John Ossoff talking about Bernie Sanders, cut number 13.
Exploiting his access to privileged information, exploiting his power to enrich himself while his own constituents are suffering and dying, absolutely makes Senator Perdue a crook. And he's afraid to come out and debate me because he won't answer these charges because he can't defend the indefensible.
Before I let you go, Senator Bernie Sanders endorsed you yesterday. He is vying to be labor secretary in the Biden administration. So he backed you. Do you support him in that endeavor?
I'm not making recommendations to the administration on cabinet picks, but I appreciate the senator's support and look forward to working with him to fight for a $15 minimum wage, to put the interests of working families ahead of corporate lobbyists in Washington, to address this climate crisis, invest in clean energy, and look out for ordinary working people for a change, instead of people who have bought access and power in Washington.
Okay, so you're not pushing to endorse a cabinet pick. I understand that. Do you want Senator Sanders?
He does want Senator Sanders' support. John Ossoff is welcome on this show, by the way, as is Raphael Warnock. I've got my invitations out to Senators Perdue and Loeffler. I expect they will come on, but I expect John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock won't. But they're all welcome here. John Ossoff also talked about what will happen if he loses his race to David Perdue, cut number 14.
Well, what we need is the capacity for this incoming administration to govern in the midst of a crisis. I mean, so many families here in Georgia and across the country can't feed themselves right now. Businesses are on the brink. Folks are looking at eviction and foreclosure. And look, let me just be very candid about this, because we all know what's going to happen if McConnell holds the Senate. He will try to do to Biden and Harris just like he tried to do to President Obama. It will be paralysis, partisan trench warfare, obstructionism as far as the eye can see at a moment of crisis when we need strong action.
Never let a crisis go to waste. John Ossoff picking up on that. Look, Mitch McConnell has to hold the Senate to make sure that the left doesn't go crazy with this country, that the economic boom that Donald Trump created by deregulation and tax cuts is not rolled back. The virus is beaten as Donald Trump and Operation Warp Speed has beaten it, and that conservative realism and a national defense that is strong and fully funded remains in place. That's why David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler have to win. Chuck Schumer laid it out. Chuck Schumer, cut number 15.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change the world. Yeah! I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Schumer? Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
Get used to that 3 times a day, whether you like it or not, until January the 5th. John Ossoff was not on CNN when he said the following, but it tells you what he really thinks. Cut number 16.
We need to send a message this year. We need to send a message that if you indulge this kind of politics, you're not just going to get beaten. You're going to get beaten so bad you can never run or show your face again in public. Because we have had enough, absolutely enough, of what we are getting from Donald Trump and his fellow travelers right now.
You see, the narrative on the left is that the Georgia conservative vote is shattered and they won't turn out because they're so disappointed about Donald Trump losing. I don't believe that for a second. I think that is a new narrative, a false narrative to replace the false polling. They can't poll. Everyone knows the polling is a lie. So they're coming up with a lie about the Georgia vote being shattered. It isn't. There are a few people who are upset with the governor and with the Secretary of State, and they're very vocal about it. But they're not going to cut their nose off to spite their face, to use the old cliche. They're going to vote for David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. In fact, I think it's going to be quite a blowout, because people are not going to want Joe Biden to govern with Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders and AOC and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Raphael Warnock is really quite radical. Cut number 18.
America, nobody can serve God and the military.
Nobody can serve God in the military. That's Raphael Warnock, and here he is talking about what Trump voters need to do. Cut number 17.
And if it is true that a man who has dominated the news and poisoned the discussion for months needs to repent, then it is doubly true that a nation that can produce such a man and make his vitriol go viral needs to repent. No matter what happens next month, more than a third of the nation that would go along with this is reason to be afraid. America needs to repent for its worship of whiteness.
That is, I think, I was on with Michael Eric Dyson yesterday. I will have the good professor on this show after I've read his new book. He believes that too. I don't worship whiteness. I worship Christ, but I do not believe Georgia is going to elect 2 radicals. And that's what John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are. They're radicals. It is not radical to run and work out. Relief Factor time. Sponsor of the show. There's my packet, which I take every morning. Got my turkey trot in. I hope you did as well. Got my boys out and running with me. Had to get them to slow down because, they're a little bit faster I am. Doesn't matter. I take my Carrion Kirkman resveratrol omega. It's like Popeye taking his spinach. Somebody asked me this weekend if I really take it. I said, do you not listen to the show? Do you not hear the sound effect? Do you not watch on Instagram? Do you not watch on YouTube? Do you not watch on Facebook? On HughHewitt.com? Do you actually see me take? Do I take it? Of course I take it. So should you. And you should come right back. Salena Zito is next. Relief Factor, $19.95. Get you started. Try it for yourself. Join the tens of thousands of people who take it. Come right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to a coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment. Yesterday, the governor of California imposed a month-long 10 p.m. curfew for nearly everybody in the most populous state in America, California. And I just take a lot of comfort in knowing that the Trump administration delivered essentially a vaccine that in normal times would have taken 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. The boomers are moving. They have spent the shutdown cleaning up their houses and taking everything to Goodwill. Now they're actually selling their houses and moving. And one of them is Salena Zito, has written a most wonderful column on saying goodbye to her home of 30 plus years. Good morning, Salena. How are you?
Good morning, you. How are you?
I am great. That is a great column. It made me choke up a little bit. It's like when my mom and dad, we put their house on the market and we had to pack it up. They had been there for 30 years. And, you know, whenever you move after 30 years, you kind of get a little lump in your throat.
Oh, yeah. Everything you touch, no matter how mundane it is, has a memory attached to it, good or bad. It's as soon as you touch it, there's this sort of shock wave that goes through you, and you can see what happened, or an interaction, or whatever it was, a memory just comes flooding through you, and you know, it's emotional, but you know, it was the right thing to do. I had loved my house. It was a beautiful old house, and when I first bought it, it was an ugly old house. But, you know, I had to decide between now and then, do I want to live in a house that I love or live closer to my grandchildren? And I'm like, this is a no-brainer. I want to live closer to my grandchildren.
But I got to say, I'm so glad the Washington Examiner, and I posted a link to this column that Salena wrote, used some pictures from the Salena files. It's like the Z files or the X files, the Salena files. And I love the pictures of food because I always found a reason. My brother's good friend in high school was a guy named Joe Mitlow, and his younger brother, Jim Mitlow, was a year behind me. So I didn't really have a Mitlow in my class, but I liked to go over to their house in Niles at Christmas time because I'd get fed, right? And, on Christmas Eve, an Italian family is like hitting the gold jackpot. And they put some, you wrote in your column that your kids' friends always ended up at your house probably for the food.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it definitely wasn't for any other reason because we didn't have much, right? We didn't have the nicest house in Mount Lebanon. We didn't have a big screen TV. We didn't have a game room. And most of the houses were modern in Mount Lebanon, but mine was old. And so the basement was literally a basement with a dirt floor. But there was always food.
And a couple of old couches, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, a couple of old couches put together. There wasn't even a TV in the basement.
You know what I thought of when I read that? Did you see that 70s show where the kids used to hang out? Unfortunately, they would do not legal things down there, but they had that basement in that 70s show. I thought, Selena's kids were in the basement with the locals having fun. There may have been a beer drinking down there, Salena. I hate to tell you this. There may have been beer drunk in that basement.
I see nothing. No, that was definitely my basement. And both of my kids were high school athletes. And so the big deal was to have pasta the night before a big game. My daughter was a high school soccer player. My son was a high school football player. And it would be incredibly common for 10 to 12 kids to show up at my house, and I would be feeding them the night before the game.
Salena, I got to ask, are you that mom, the loudest mom in the stands?
Maybe.
Maybe, I knew it. There's always a loudest mom, and right now everyone is having a little burst of self-awareness as they drive to work that they are that parent. I am not. I am the stoic parent, but there is always, I love sitting next to that mom. So that was you, huh? Did you embarrass your kids?
Yeah, and I was an opportunity cheering mom. It wasn't just for my kids. I was cheering for all the kids, and they would let me know that they appreciated it.
Have you stayed in Mount Lebanon?
No, I moved one county east of Allegheny County because that's where my daughter and my grandchildren were living.
Well, good choice. When do you hit the road to Georgia, Salena? I want everyone to read this because they'll appreciate their home at Christmas. However comfy and cozy it is, it will still be, and how many people are in it doesn't matter. It will still be the place where Christmas happens. When do you hit the road to Georgia to give us some firsthand reporting from down there?
As soon as this winter storm passes on Tuesday, I will be on the road.
Yeah, there's a big one coming in there.
There's a big one coming. It's over in your area, in your homeland right now.
It's in Buckeye Land, and it's raining down sleet and snow, and it's headed towards Pennsylvania. Luckily, the Browns got to play in Jacksonville yesterday. Salena, Zito, it's a great column. Head over to Washington Examiner, or just go to my Twitter feed. You can find a link there, and everything Salena writes is at salenazito.com. You ought to just go subscribe. This is a wonderful thing to send to anyone who's moving this year because the boomers are moving. It's sort of like a giant migration that happens annually of any species. The boomers are moving, and there are a lot of us, and they're all the young boomers, especially the young boomers, and that's Salena and I. We're all getting up and wrapping up and moving away somewhere, and that means the houses are going on the market and the millennials are buying them, and that's all great. This life, friends. Don't go anywhere. The cycle of the Hugh Hewitt Show continues with hour number 2 right ahead here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part.
Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
All right, let's begin with Jamie in Freehold, New Jersey. The famous Jamie of Freehold. Hello.
How are you today? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
So, I'm 46 years old. I just have to say that I discovered you about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the happiness hour makes my week.
I love that.
I literally look forward to you singing the original lyrics.
I love you for that. No, the original lyrics line. You cracked me up.
The original lyrics.
Yes,
yeah.
every
anyway,
week.
I recently, yes, absolutely. When I miss it, I'm unhappy.
Gotcha.
So I recently started smoking cigars, and I was just curious, very simply, what's your favorite cigar and why?
So I have a number of answers to that, and even though 98% of you don't smoke cigars, you should still be interested in the question because it's philosophic. It's not just cigars, and I'll explain why. So I have two answers, and one is, if I were to ask you, what is your favorite food, would you have an answer?
No, because I have multiple.
Oh, that's my answer on cigars.
So if you were in a jolly good mood in front of one of your fireside chats, what's one that you'd go to?
All right, so now it's not one. There is a generic type that I tend to love.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Appreciate it. Chris is in San Antonio, Texas. Chris, you're on The Larry Elder Show.
Oh, wow. What an honor to speak with the great Eldersky. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Chris.
I guess my question is, can you imagine if this goes to the courts and then it goes to Congress and then it goes for President Trump like we all know it should?
Chris, mass suicide. Mass suicide.
This whole cities are going to be burning to the ground.
Their ears would explode. I mean, it would be catastrophic for the left if Donald Trump were awarded the election. You think we feel that the election was fraudulent? What do you think they're going to feel? They're going to go absolutely bonkers. They believe that the Russians not only interfered, but 78% of them believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election, even though our intelligence committee has never reached that conclusion. So they're going to go absolutely bonkers. Remember what Hillary advised Joe Biden?
So we've got to have a massive legal operation. I know the Biden campaign is working on that. We have to have poll workers, and I urge people who are able to be a poll worker. We have to have our own teams of people to counter the force of intimidation that the Republicans and Trump are going to put outside polling places. This is a big organizational challenge, but at least we know more about what they're going to do. And, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
They would go absolutely ballistic.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
And I hope that this does not explode to the volcanic expectations that I have. And it's actually, I'm unbelievably worried where this is going. Because normal people, regular Americans, are not going to tolerate what is happening right now in our country. And what's happening is the widespread criminality from within our own government. That's where things start to get very, very dangerous. And normal people and regular people that work their tail off to do the right thing, to not even get parking tickets, to not even get speeding, to people that follow the law. They see this Nevada cash for vote scheme. They see the granny farming that whistleblowers have now said exists in in Wisconsin. They see the piles of dead voters that allegedly voted in these states. They see the 1,774% increase for older people, that 90-plus-year-olds that registered to vote in Pennsylvania, most of which registered to vote online. You're right. They see the National Democrat Party suggesting re-education camps for Trump supporters. They see the New York Times article that says, reach out to Trump supporters, I try. They also then see the candidate that they voted for, Donald Trump. What are they saying on the front page of the New York Times? That he might go to prison as soon as he's done with his term. Playing with fire, everybody. It's not good.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
What did you think of the press conference yesterday? Are you satisfied in general by the campaign's response and by the conservative response to what we witnessed 2 weeks ago on election night?
Well, here's what we have to understand as a predicate. If we allow fraud to continue, if we turn a blind eye to it, if we accept the proposition that any accusation of fraud or any query of ballots cast is racist or an attack on democracy itself, then we as conservatives will never win another election again. Because in some of these, very densely populated cities, you have a feature that I like to call ballot laundering, where people didn't actually intend to vote those ballots those particular ways. There was just a mechanized system to request ballots, submit those ballots, and then have people count them in the absence of review, authentication, validity. And my concern is that while the campaign is doing everything they can and should after the fact to expose this, we should have caught it in the act, Dr.
Yes.
Gorka.
Yes.
We should have had U.S. attorneys on the ground ready to enforce injunctions, ready to demand that the law be complied with, because here's the problem. Every remedy that Mayor Giuliani is requesting in legal proceedings requires the disqualification of pools of ballots that have both legal and potentially illegal ballots.
Right, the commingled ballots.
Exactly. So, I do not see any path to
Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada, Hugh Hewitt. Inside a very rainy beltway on the last day of November on Cyber Monday, 2020. And this is the day that all the online retailers, from Amazon to Walmart, from Costco to Target, they all give you their best deals. So people will be happily doing their Christmas shopping. I think Christmas is going to be very different this year. If you don't have to go to parties, and you're not going to get at grandmother's house, and you're waiting for the vaccine, and the vaccine is rolling out across the entire country and soon the world. Moderna announced earlier, during the break, in fact, that their results show its vaccine is perfectly safe and they will ask the FDA for expedited approval. So Pfizer and Moderna will both be rolling out their vaccine across the country. Frontline healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, ER attendants, people who work in hospitals, ambulance drivers, admissions clerks, they'll all get it. My official toxicologist of the Hugh Hewitt Show, who's done dozens of drug trials over his 45 years career, tells me to expect all of the frontline people to be covered by the end of this month, December, next month actually, because we're still November 30th, and for everyone who wants a vaccine to be able in the United States to get one by the end of March. The problem, he says, remains the third world, and the third world needs the AstraZeneca because they don't have the infrastructure with which to cool the Moderna and really cool the Pfizer vaccine. But in the United States, it will be fine. It will roll out. People will get it. America will get back to normal, and we'll lead the world. America is going to save the world again. And it's going to be Donald Trump's Operation Warp Speed that does it because of the scientific and logistical pump that it got. The money, the manpower, the cheerleading, the effort, it's terrific. President-elect Biden is naming his economic team Neera Tanden, who I have often debated on TV. She's fine. She's a liberal, but she's a nice person. Heading up the Office of Management and Budget. Cecilia Roos to head the Council on Economic Advisors. That really doesn't matter as much. The CEA is always a fun place, but they debate a lot and they talk a lot, and they don't really have any power. OMB has a lot of power. Neera is going to have a lot of power at OMB. There is a big effort, the Wall Street Journal says. Investors are piling into risky electronically traded funds. People put $16 billion into the first 10 months of the year into ETFs. Not a great move, in my view. In fact, let me do a market checkup for you folks, brought to you by andrewandtodd.com. They are the best lenders in the world. They're with Sierra Pacific Mortgage, longtime sponsors of my program. andrewandtodd.com will lend you the money to buy a house. And I really think you ought to go out and get that house now, because these interest rates are not going to last. The 10-year Treasury is at 0.84%. It's down a little bit from last week. So interest rates remain at rock bottom lows, but I just don't believe they're going to stay there. I believe that a lot of you will understand the window is open. Go and refinance your house, buy your house, help your son or daughter, grandson or granddaughter get into a house at these interest rates, because you'll never be this low again. On Friday, the Dow was up 0.37. You say, but it was Black Friday. What about all the shopping that went on? Well, it's about 50% of the in-store retail that most people normally receive. NASDAQ was up 114 points because all of that Black Friday shopping still happened. It just happened online. And the S&P was up only 8. This morning overseas, Germany up a little bit, England down a little bit. They don't really know what to make of it. And in America, Cyber Monday, what's it going to mean? We won't know until later in the day. But I believe it will continue to be extraordinary pent-up demand for Christmas presents that just are not going to be delivered in person. The key is to wait for the vaccine. Donald Trump on with Maria Bartiromo yesterday laid out the impressive record of warp speed. Cut number 4.
And even now, the stock market just hit an all-time high during a pandemic. And what did I do? I came up with vaccines that people didn't think would have for 5 years, and we have them. They're going to be distributed in 2 weeks. I mean, think of what we've done. And nobody's done it like this. And we're doing much better than Europe. By the way, you never hear about Europe. We're doing better than the rest of the world. We're doing better. But we have 2 vaccines. We're coming up with another one. Johnson & Johnson's coming up with one. We'll have 4 or 5 great vaccines 4 or 5 years ahead of schedule. People hardly talk about that. And they'll try and say that Biden came up with the vaccines.
No, it's Operation Warp Speed put together by President Trump, Vice President Pence, and the task force that exists today. There will be a new task force on January 20th. I understand that. I think they will pick up whatever is being done and just roll it out. The logistical miracle and the scientific miracle of Operation Warp Speed, the president-elect and Ron Klain are not going to screw it up for political purposes. They realize that whatever you do in the transition is forgotten by the time re-election rolls around. It will be forgotten by the midterms. And the midterm, I cannot figure out whether or not the Republicans have 214, 215, or 213 seats. I don't think they have 216 seats. I believe they've won the Iowa race. This tells you every vote counts. 6-vote race in Iowa for House of Representatives seats. Meeks, Congresswoman Meeks, I think is her name, has a Republican challenger, is won by 6 votes out of hundreds of thousands cast. 6 votes. Mike Garcia in California is going to win by 500 to 1,000 votes. Don't know about the upstate New York seat that's still being counted because New York is the most screwed up state in the union. Honest to goodness, Andrew Cuomo, what a governor. Whew. Meanwhile, the president talked about what it was like on election night. Cut number 9.
The election, I was called by the biggest people saying, congratulations, political people. Congratulations, sir, you just won the election. It was 10 o'clock, and you looked at the numbers, and I'm sure you felt that way. This election was over, and then they did dumps. They call them dumps, big, massive dumps in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and all over. If you take a look at you just take a look at just about every state that we're talking about, every swing state that we're talking about, and they did these massive dumps of votes, and all of a sudden I went from winning by a lot to losing by a little. And in some cases, it took a period of time to do it.
Now, he goes on to argue, don't expect the Supreme Court. He's trying to let everybody know. Don't expect the Supreme Court. Don't expect a miracle. President-elect Biden is going to be President Biden on January 20th. He's trying to let people down. Cut number 10.
Well, the problem is it's hard to get into the Supreme Court. I've got the best Supreme Court advocates, lawyers, that want to argue the case if it gets there. But they said it's very hard to get a case up there. Can you imagine Donald Trump, President of the United States, files a case, and I probably can't get a case, even with, and we have tremendous proof. We have hundreds and hundreds of affidavits, sworn affidavits, and it's very hard to get a case to the Supreme Court. That's what everybody's fighting for. I thought that Mike Kelly, congressman, I thought they had a great case, and it got thrown out the other day. Now they'll appeal it, I hope, to the Supreme Court. They have a great case because the legislature didn't make the decision on this stuff, and they have a great case. But you have to appeal it. The big thing is, can you get it?
That is the big thing. Very difficult to get cert. The president's case, which he was hoping on Congressman Kelly's case, that would be the one that would throw out Pennsylvania and be a precedent. Another did not get out of the Third Circuit. It was turned down by a Trump judge and other judges. I think 3 Republican judges said there is no standing here. There is no case. So he's trying to let people know it's going to be President Biden. There is not a case alive in the United States today that will change the outcome of this election. I will let you know if that happens. There isn't one. He is gearing up to run in 2024. That's what I said on Meet the Press yesterday. Cut number 1.
Hugh Hewitt, your listeners, they don't want to believe the facts that are on the ground. Do you feel like you confront your listeners enough that don't want to believe the facts, or do you think you could do more?
Oh, every day I talk to people who believe that there's massive fraud in Georgia, and I tell them no, and they've got to get out and vote for David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, who I support. But I think what's going on is an undervaluation of the voters' intelligence again. They're very sophisticated. They know President Trump is, as of today, planning on running for election in 2024 against President-elect Biden. And he's doing things consistent with that. And stop right there. That's what's going on. The campaign for 2024 has begun. I'll play you that clip in its entirety when we come back, but it's begun. Use the break, will you, to go to andrewandtodd.com. Give them a little bit of information. They will help you maximize the value of your home or get into one. andrewandtodd.com or call them at 888-888-1172. Come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Appreciate it. Chris is in San Antonio, Texas. Chris, you're on The Larry Elder Show.
Oh, wow. What an honor to speak with the great Eldersky. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Chris.
I guess my question is, can you imagine if this goes to the courts and then it goes to Congress and then it goes for President Trump like we all know it should?
Chris, mass suicide. Mass suicide.
This whole cities are going to be burning to the ground.
Their ears would explode. I mean, it would be catastrophic for the left if Donald Trump were awarded the election. You think we feel that the election was fraudulent? What do you think they're going to feel? They're going to go absolutely bonkers. They believe that the Russians not only interfered, but 78% of them believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election, even though our intelligence committee has never reached that conclusion. So they're going to go absolutely bonkers. Remember what Hillary advised Joe Biden?
So we've got to have a massive legal operation. I know the Biden campaign is working on that. We have to have poll workers, and I urge people who are able to be a poll worker. We have to have our own teams of people to counter the force of intimidation that the Republicans and Trump are going to put outside polling places. This is a big organizational challenge, but at least we know more about what they're going to do. And, you know, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
They would go absolutely ballistic.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
And I hope that this does not explode to the volcanic expectations that I have. And it's actually, I'm unbelievably worried where this is going. Because normal people, regular Americans, are not going to tolerate what is happening right now in our country. And what's happening is the widespread criminality from within our own government. That's where things start to get very, very dangerous. And normal people and regular people that work their tail off to do the right thing, to not even get parking tickets, to not even get speeding, to people that follow the law, they see this Nevada cash for vote scheme. They see the granny farming that whistleblowers have now said exists in in Wisconsin. They see the piles of dead voters that allegedly voted in these states. They see the 1,774% increase for older people, that 90-plus-year-olds that register to vote in Pennsylvania, most of which register to vote online. You're right. They see the National Democrat Party suggesting re-education camps for Trump supporters. They see the New York Times article that says, reach out to Trump supporters, I try. They also then see the candidate that they voted for, Donald Trump. What are they saying on the front page of the New York Times? That he might go to prison as soon as he's done with his term. Playing with fire, everybody. It's not good.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in
One of my favorite carols. Do you know the story of this song? I learned it. This was really one of those weird moments. I would guess it was 2007. My friends, who I won't name, they're part of the family of Mitt Romney, invited me to give some opening remarks at the Christmas tree lighting at the LDS Temple in San Diego. Now, I'm not a member of the LDS Church, so I can't go inside the temple. So I was invited to give some remarks, but they light it up. It's really one of the great pageants of San Diego. And you can bring the music down. And one of the great pageants of San Diego. Absolutely gorgeous. And so I said, love to, happy to come. I look forward to it. But Jim says to me, Dr. Jim, and some people know him, but you can't go very long. I said, I won't go very long. I understand. The crowd is there for the light. They're not there to listen to Hugh Hewitt. They just want someone to do a little bit 3-minute shtick. I've always understand when you've got a 3-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute, whatever it is, hit your mark, right? If you've been doing this as long as I have, hit your mark. So I prepare a little 5-minute deal, and I talk about my favorite story behind a carol. Now, I did a book in 1996 called Searching for God in America, and the back of it includes Walt Harrah's essay. It's called Searching for God in America, on famous hymns and carols. And Mark Roberts has done a show on it before, but they didn't cover this one because this is a 1962 carol. Do you hear what I hear? 1962. And the backstory of it is it was written by the secular songwriters during the Cuban Missile Crisis, which scared the living daylights out of everyone. I'm not old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'm born in 56 and 62. I'm waiting for Santa to come. I don't know anything about Soviet missiles in Cuba and blockades and the 13-day book and all that. I mean, it was tense. So these people wrote that. Do you hear what I hear? It was a cry for peace in the world and an enormous relief that the Cuban Missile Crisis did not blow up the world. And we were close. We were very, very close. And we may be close again, given the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. But that's why I like it. So I gave my little 3 minutes, but that's why I love the carol. And the LDS choir in San Diego then went into a pre-planned, pre-rehearsed program that had been planned for weeks, months. They had been rehearsing. The first song of which was, Do You Hear What I Hear? Okay, that's just a great coincidence, right? It's like they coordinated with me, not a chance. Nobody said boo to me. They had no idea. I prepared it on the fly like the day before. I had no idea. And I just like that carol because when I was younger in the mid-'60s, it was sung by a baritone at Blessed Sacrament Church in Warren, Ohio, and I was by just a solo baritone without organ or piano, just stood up and sang it at the old church, the one that's gone now, at Blessed Sacrament in the gym. It's now the gym for the Blessed Sacrament School. Every parochial school that was built in the 60s was built. You build the gym first. That's where you hold mass. That's the church until you can afford to build the church. Build the school first. The gym is the church, and then the church it gets built, and then the gym becomes a gym, right? Everybody knows that. That's why. And now they're contracting, and so all those old gyms are being used by the community at large, and that's fine. And the churches are standing, and the schools are closed. I wish one of the billionaires would just give all the money to the Catholic schools and say, reopen your schools, and that will solve America's inner city schooling problem. It would. It would. Don't give billions of dollars to foundations to study the problem. Just give it to the bishops. They'll reopen their schools, and their schools will be the place. But that's the story behind that carol. I love that carol. Don't go anywhere, America. More coming up. 1-800-520-1234. Is Newsmax TV the way, or is Hugh Hewitt TV the way? Is there going to be an alternative? The New York Times covers that story, and I talk about it when we come back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Prison Fellowship. Click on the Angel Tree banner at the top of HughHewitt.com.
facts that Donald Trump has nominated an extremist who will damage our country for decades. Trump's hardline nominee will undermine marriage equality, crush voting rights for people of color, and further rig our system for wealthy and big corporations. While Trump wants to treat his announcement like it's a primetime reality show, we know that the Supreme Court of the United States is not a game. Starting tonight, Trump and his allies will try to eliminate the last check on the president by rubber stamping and ramming through a judge who will threaten Roe versus Wade, repeal the Affordable Care Act, and cater to Trump's culture of corruption. We cannot let this stand. Brett Kavanaugh would bring all of Trump's worst care qualities to the Supreme Court. And even Mitch McConnell believes Kavanaugh would be a terrible record that would disqualify him. Brett Kavanaugh will essentially be a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. Brett Kavanaugh is a man who once tried to force a detained immigrant woman to carry her pregnancy to term against her own will. Brett Kavanaugh has also acted as a skilled political operative in undermining the ACA. And Kavanaugh has made clear he would give shocking deference to presidential immunity and basically give Donald Trump a free pass with the Mueller investigation. Democracy is at risk with the Kavanaugh nomination. This nomination is an outrageous partisan power grab against women and all Americans by a historically unpopular president, and we cannot let it.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.com.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Who do you think gave the high sign or made the plan behind the scenes what to do on election night? These are people. This wasn't an algorithm. Who do you suppose are the mandarins of power on the Democratic side who made these decisions?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of different working theories here, and I think they all might have some element of truth together. And so some people are very focused on the Hammer scorecard, the Dominion voting systems, and I think that actually there's a lot behind that. We've already seen that one of the Dominion voting systems changed 6,000 votes in Michigan from a Republican losing to a Republican winning. We've seen memory stick upload issues in 3 counties now in Georgia that otherwise would not have been found if it wasn't for the canvassing and the audit in Georgia. I also think that there's a lot to be said, though, about a phrase that I coined called ballot laundering, where all these ballots were sent out and you enlist 30 or 40 criminals, which it always stuns me. People say, well, voter fraud doesn't exist. I say, it's like saying money laundering doesn't exist. They're like, well, I went into my local laundromat. I couldn't see any money laundering. I'm like, yeah, that's the point, is that I counted all their dollar bills. I audited them. I said, Well, do you look at their books? Did you talk to their customers? Do you see that guy come with a big thing of cash and say, yeah, wash some of my briefs and my suits? You have to look a little bit deeper with a little more complexity. And ballot laundering is what the New York Times said in 2012. It exists all over. They used to cover this stuff ferociously, which is called granny farming. There was a 1,774% increase in voter registration for people over the age of 90 in Pennsylvania in the midst of a pandemic.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Welcome back, America. I don't know about you, but when I think of Kris Kringle, I also think of Kurt Schlichter. He's really Father Christmas to us all. Colonel Kurt joins me. He's got a new book out. Good morning, Colonel. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm glad that I'm associated with Christmas cheer instead of grim misery.
No, you're not the Grinch. You're Kris Kringle, Kurt. Kurt, before I go to talk about your new book, Crisis, which is your latest Turnbull novel, which our friends at the Bulwark really love.
They hailed it as appalling.
Yeah, they hailed it as appalling.
That's a blurb on the cover.
Let me add, well, I want to do this in order. First, I want to ask you about Nevada. Then I want to ask you about Joe Biden nominees. And then I'm going to come to the Kelly Turnbull series. So first of all, how did it go in Nevada? You went over there with Rick Grinnell and a bunch of people to do the best that you could, but there's no turning it around. What happened? What'd you see?
It was a very interesting experience, Hugh. I spent about three days there, and then I had to come home and quarantine for COVID for 2 weeks. So that was a delight.
Did you get it?
Oh yeah. Oh, I had it.
How did it go? How did it feel?
I considered it a moderate head cold, but my real problem is I infected my wife.
Ooh.
Who's from Cuba and once told me I don't own enough guns, which by any reasonable measure I do.
Did she take that out? I mean, was she sicker than you were?
She was, how do you say it in Spanish? Muy unhappy-o.
Oh, muy unhappy-o. Arena, oh. So, but you're both recovered?
Yeah, we're both fine. She actually did worse than me, which, boomerang for make me do worse than her. But she lost her taste and smell. I just kind of had the sniffles and just felt a little off. Minor fever. She had a more major fever. We were okay. Luckily, we have teenagers, so they don't talk to us, and so there was no problem quarantining from them.
Okay, that's number one. What did you see in Nevada when you were there before you got sick?
Well, I saw a lot of people trying to come together to fight a fight that, frankly, I think we need to be prepared for next time. It was a lot of us coming together, very quickly. There's a decent repository of very good electoral law folks in the Republican Party, just not enough of them. Combined with some folks like me, which is I'm kind of a have gun will travel litigator, we were able to put together some challenges. But Hugh, you see this like I do as a lawyer. This is pushing a boulder uphill. To win this fight, we've got to get 3 judges to effectively pick an election. Then we've got to get 3 courts of appeal to say, okay, I'm cool with you picking the results of the election. Then we got to get the Supreme Court to do it. So it's always an uphill battle. A fraud case will take me 2 or 3 years to get to trial. You've got maybe a month to put one together in an election challenge. And not just fraud, but irregularities of all kinds. Some are technical, some are actually kind of malicious. So it's very, very tough. On an abbreviated schedule, I think the lawyers did a very good job with what they had. But, Hugh, when you're committing fraud, you're kind of covering your tracks. When there are irregularities, you still have people defending the system. It's not an easy fight.
So, Kurt, what I think the president, Maria Bartiromo, yesterday was trying to tell his supporters, I'm not going to win any lawsuits. I am going to run for president in 2024. And by the way, we need to win Georgia. I think that's what he was saying yesterday. And I speak Trump pretty well. He's saying it's hard to get to the Supreme Court. There is presently no lawsuit that has not been dismissed that would alter any result in any state. That's a factual statement. Do you agree with it?
I think that you are correctly assessing the president's position. The president's a practical guy. He's a smart guy. Look, he's a guy who builds tall buildings. And, fantasy doesn't enter into it when it comes to engineering. The building either stands or it falls. And sometimes you don't like the answer. I do think he'll run in 2024. That's just what my gut says. I think there are a lot of Republicans who are going to grumble a little about having stand back in line an extra 4 to 8 years. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. This is a very competitive guy. This is a guy who arguably chose to run for president when Barack Obama insulted him at the White House press correspondence dinner. He wants to win. He wants to Grover Cleveland this all over the place, and I would not put it past him.
Oh, I think he's going to declare Trump 2024 on or before the inauguration. Now, let me talk to you about my theory of the case regarding President-elect Biden. I would, except for the Secretary of Defense and the service chiefs and the Defense Department, give him whoever he wants. He's going to nominate liberals like Neera Tanden for OMB and maybe Bernie Sanders for... I would give him whoever he wants because the quicker you unveil socialism, the quicker it fails. The only place I would insist on reality is DOD. It's really the only place I would put up a fight. Otherwise, take it, run with it, collapse it quickly because it ain't going to work, Kurt. What's your theory of the case on nominees?
I like that theory because, look, he's going to fail. I'm surprised at how center-left he is instead of hard-left, although everybody to me is hard-left. I mean, that's just the way it is. But he's not picking, the squad. I don't see Elizabeth Warren on the warpath as a Treasury Secretary, for instance. But I do think, I kind of channel the Romans. I want to see some heads on some pikes. There are some people there who need to be made examples of. Definitely draw the line at the Defense Department. Otherwise, give him, the less crazy ones. But there are a few people who have just crossed the line, and it's time to flex our muscles and exercise our power and tell this guy no. We're effectively going to have a split government. I think we're going to win in Georgia, mostly because the murder turtle. Mitch McConnell, Cocaine Mitch, is in charge of this fight.
Did you come up with that? Is that yours?
I probably.
The murder turtle.
Yeah. Look, he's going to Amy McGrath, this Warnock and Ossoff, Tweedledee and Tweedle leftist.
Oh, the murder turtle. The Cocaine Mitch has a new name. Moscow Mitch, Cocaine, the Grim Rich, and now the Myrtle Turtle. The murder turtle. Kurt Schlichter, that's brilliant. Well, now tell me something about, the Kelly Turnbull novels are hated by, they're not even rhinos. They just kind of left the Republican Party, and they're never going to work again. The funny thing is, the Never-Trumpers think they are going to be welcomed back with open arms. They're actually radioactive. They're the green kryptonite of the Republican Party. You can't even sit next to them at dinner, right? You can't email with them. And have a future in the Republican Party, and they hate your books, which means your books are going to sell millions. Tell us about Kelly Turnbull and the latest.
Well, look, I'm an Andrew Breitbart guy, and Andrew Breitbart said, hey, we need to do some conservative culture, but it's got to be good. It's got to be fun. I love, airplane books, action, adventure. I love humor. I was a stand-up comic for a while. You read my stuff at Town Hall. I tell a joke or two. And I just decided to write a book called People's Republic back in 2016 about America splitting in two and a taciturn operative who goes into the blue America and sees all sorts of crazy stuff. Nutty stuff, Hugh, that I'm just fantasizing about people getting arrested for misgendering others. That's nuts. That could never happen. Over the course of 5 books, they practically moved into the nonfiction section. The latest is Crisis, about trying to avoid a terrible, terrible conflict between red and blue America. And my operative is out there, chasing terrorists and making fun of liberals. And he encounters people like Eric Swalwell and Jerry Nadler. And it's lots of fun, and there's lots of guns. I just want to make some I want to read. And, it got to number 29 on all of Amazon.
Yeah, well, they've all done very well. Is this 4 or 5 in the series?
This is number 5. I mean, I'm sitting there going, you mean I'm beating 50 Shades of Grey? That's something.
Well, you are kind of 50 Shades of Grayish, Kurt. Tell me a little bit about
50 Shades of Red.
What 50 Shades of Red? Who is the publisher of Crisis?
Well, what I did, I do 2 things. Regner is my publisher for nonfiction. And I'll probably have another proposal to them in a few months, and then we'll do that. And I do one of those a year. These, I take advantage of Amazon, which allows you to publish professionally without going through a publisher. So I'm not spending 9 months in an editing process on these. I get them, I edit them, I proofread them. I have an artist who does very distinctive and beautiful covers. Covers are always fun. And then I can just put it out. And again, I mean, I get to 29 on all of Amazon.
I know you do the Don Jr. thing, and Don Jr. I wonder if the president is going to do that with his memoir.
Why not?
You get to keep 95% of the money then, as opposed to keep 5% of the money.
Absolutely, the money is just fine, but the control is great too, because. What publishing? I'm beating guys like Brad Thor, right?
Careful, you're going to have Scott come and blow up your house. His hero, Harveth.
Let him come.
Let him come. Kelly Turnbull and Scott Harveth are going to have it out.
Oh, that's good. Well, there may be a Jim Garrity crossover with his Hunting for Horsemen book for the next time, but we'll see how that works out. But the thing is, I don't have to ask a publisher. Publishers are skittish. I've had offers on these books, but a lot of them are terrified because they're outspokenly conservative books. They make fun of liberals, and of course they've got the Bill Kristol seal of disapproval, and a lot of them won't touch them. So
I got to ask you about that. There is a story in the New York Times today about Newsmax, how they've gone to 1 million viewers from 50,000. And Michael Clemente, who's a longtime news person, says 50% of America has 90% of television news yelling at them. That's a paraphrase. That's absolutely true. Only it's 74 million Americans have 95 to 99% of television news yelling at them. Can that endure in a market-based system?
Well, what's interesting is my views have evolved over a while, over time. I thought, well, money will always win out, but not being hassled by your leftist second wife for these CEOs is also a very, very important factor. And I think a lot of them are leaving money on the table. They're leaving money on the table with the Kelly Turnbull books. Fox is leaving money on the table with by making a conscious effort to move, if not to the left, to the center. And conservatives are the ultimate abused wives, Hugh, as you well know. They are suspicious. They are ready to believe the worst out of anybody. That is why Fox's ratings have gone down. They feel betrayed. Whether
and they
that's
will.
Right or wrong,
they will go. If there are good production values, they will go. That's why people are actually watching Hugh Hewitt on Facebook right now. Kurt Schlichter is going to be in for me next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday. He can tell you more at that time about Crisis. Thank you, Colonel Kurt. He is, of course, the Kris Kringle of Conservative Christmas, Kurt Schlichter. Don't go anywhere, America, except to ReliefFactor.com. Great sponsor of the program. I'm sure Kurt takes it every day. Does he take it when he comes to the studio, Generalissimo? I hope he takes his Relief Factor on air and does. He's got enough reps now as my guest host that he often takes ReliefFactor.com with him wherever he goes as he flies over. And I'm so glad he's better. I know everyone on the COVID spectrum, from people who had the sniffles to people who died. Stay tuned, America.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Now, I just was reading some other news as I was getting ready for the show today. Johnson & Johnson which has not been mentioned in the equation. It's all been Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical giant, is going to seek FDA authorization for their vaccine, and their vaccine is a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine, and it looks like it might be February or sooner. We are likely weeks away from sort of going in an entirely different direction and getting closer to putting this behind us. Remember when Brett Baer used to say we're one day closer to this end of coronavirus? We need it. We need it. I know there's lots of arguing and anger and frustration over the election. There should be. We knew all along, all of us knew that when you're encouraging millions and millions of people to mail in ballots because of COVID, that there was a real strong potential for, I don't know, the 27 toss-up races to all be won by Republicans down ballot, but Trump couldn't quite pull it off. Yeah, right. Biden got 10 million more votes than Barack Obama did. Yeah, right. Americans are not stupid. We're not blind. And we may be frustrated right now, and we may be stressed, and we may be prepared for whatever comes our way. We're going to persevere.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt, 51 minutes after the hour. Christmas music has arrived at the Hugh Hewitt Show because it's after Thanksgiving. And I go with the old department store rule. No Christmas before Thanksgiving. That's been broken this year. And today is Cyber Monday, but a lot of Cyber Monday took place on Black Friday because a lot of people didn't go to the mall. You could get a parking space on Friday. You could go to the mall. I'm not sure who did. I'm not sure. They've got to be younger. You don't really want to get COVID. Hundreds of thousands of people are getting it every day. I think about 5% of America has been infected. Now, the death rate is way down because we know how to treat it better, and the wonderful doctors, nurses, and hospital workers are doing a magnificent job, and there are new therapeutics and new approaches to it. But Moderna announced this morning their vaccine works. They're going to get the FDA emergency approval. They will roll it out like Pfizer. Yesterday on Meet the Press, where I was, Dr. Fauci told the world, as he did, I'm sure, on the other networks, the vaccine will reach frontline first responders by the end of December. The official research toxicologist, PhD toxicologist of the Hugh Hewitt Show, who retired from one of the bigs after 45 years of work, told me on Thursday of last week, Operation Warp Speed is simply phenomenal. It's a miracle, a scientific and logistical achievement without parallel in the history of science. And every doctor, he believes, every doctor and nurse will get it by the end of December, the vaccination in the United States, and that everyone who wants a vaccination will get it by the end of March, but that the country will not achieve herd immunity until September because half the country is going to be suspicious of it. Listen, get the vaccine as soon as it's offered to you. Get it. You don't want to take the risk. Yes, there are people like my friend Kurt Schlichter, like my friend Robert O'Brien, who have gotten it and have recovered, like the President of the United States. And then I've got friends who died. And you don't want to be on that end of the spectrum. You don't want to get it. You don't want to gamble. Why? Remain, keep wearing your mask, keep staying inside. This is just science. If you reduce the amount of risk you take, you reduce the likelihood of getting it. That is what all of life is about when it comes to risk taking. You take smart risks, you don't take stupid risks. You don't invest in a startup that is all paper and promise, you invest in Amazon. If you want to take a risk, you invest in Costa or Target. You don't invest in these new risky ETFs. And you don't say, I'm going to get immunity by getting COVID and staying home for 2 weeks. Bad idea. Wait for the vaccination. Keep wearing your mask, keep socially distancing. And shop online. Cyber Monday's got great results. But, as my pastor said at Mass yesterday, there isn't going to be a lot of Christmas parties this year. And he's kind of happy about that because he's old school and he believes Advent ought to be a time of reflection and preparation for Christmas, old school, kind of a mini Lent. I'm not with him on that. I love Christmas parties. I love Christmas. And I believe in celebrating the birth of Christ, not being old school and moping around and going with the 12 days of Christmas because the entire culture looks at you and you don't have any fun when they're having fun. And you don't have family together when family's getting together. But this year, there aren't going to be Christmas parties at work. That's stupid. So take the money you would have spent on the Secret Santa and give it to Prison Fellowship. All right, over at HughHewitt.com, there is a banner. And I encourage you to go to that banner and use it and be as generous as you can. Because there are kids who have depended on Angel Tree for decades. Kevin is one such kid talking about his most precious Christmas memories because of Angel Tree.
It was cool to know that in some form of a way, she was still like looking out for me, even though she wasn't there. I had hope and could definitely still feel that love and that bond between us. I think it's so important to support Angel Tree. You have no idea the hope that you're instilling in them just by that simple gesture of them receiving a gift from the parent, even though the parent is not there.
His mom was at Rikers. An infamous name. It's not an infamous prison anymore. It's a prison. They're not fun. And the moms and dads in there long to be able to have the means to send a note along with a present and a Bible to every child in America whose parent is incarcerated. And you help them do that when you donate to Angel Tree. And you can do that right now during the break. You go to HughHewitt.com. You go to the very top and you will find there the Angel Tree banner. Please be as generous as you can. It takes $22 for one kid to get a present, $22, but you can go much bigger than that. You can give $100,000, $200,000, $1 million. I really do hope we make Christmas come alive for a lot of kids who otherwise do not get Christmas. And this year, the church patio delivery system is broken. That's where people normally get their Angel Tree. I've seen it for years at my churches on the West Coast. Angel Tree has been operating on church patios. I think they work here in the East Coast too, but again, everything's shut down, so I haven't seen them. But you can be a part of that simply by going to HughHewitt.com. You can also watch me. When I come back next hour, I'm going to talk about the New York Times article that is about alternatives to television. Half of America voted for Donald Trump. 74 million people voted for Donald Trump, and about 3% of television news talks to them. There will be a response. Part of it is you watching me on Facebook and Instagram, which I urge you to go and do right now, and come back for the hour number 3 of the November 30th Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Who's on tomorrow?
Jennifer in Tustin, California. Hi.
Hi, Dennis. I love the fun on your show. More importantly, the clarity.
Yes. Well, if you like fun and clarity, I'm your man.
Excellent.
I'm your other man. You may be married or have a boyfriend.
Yes.
So I fully.
I am. I have a wonderful man.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm your other man.
Great.
Right.
I've heard you say. My question is, I've heard you say several times of late on the show that you would not take the COVID vaccine, and I feel the same way myself. But I'm wondering, what will I do if the COVID vaccine is mandatory? In the same way that, child vaccines are mandatory in many states. Have you thought about that?
I have thought about it. It's a real dilemma.
Okay.
If they don't allow you to go on an airplane without proof of a vaccine, I would have to weigh not being able to travel and give speeches and do my cruises and I cannot live a life without travel. Yes, exactly. It's
right.
See, I want everybody listening who doesn't know, I've taken every vaccine offered, and my kids have taken all of them. I never had any interest in vaccines. I just took them. But I don't trust the medical establishment any longer. They, like the New York Times, they have lost me.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are in some sort of social gathering. And he's put out a statement saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. We're all gonna do better."
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated.
And he started counting them: 1, 2, 3, 4. And maybe he didn't realize that he had exceeded the number. First, he sends his children to in-person private school while attacking school choice and keeping public schools closed throughout California. Now he attends a private gathering while telling Californians to do otherwise.
Got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach.
Sacramento Bee editorial board, quote, "If Newsom can't get his head into the game, perhaps he should make the governor thing a one-term affair and leave the job open for someone with a desire to lead," end of quote. He told you not to have a gathering of more than 10 people. He exceeded that, but spiritually he didn't exceed it. He may have exceeded it physically.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
A woman who treats developmentally disabled patients. She said, "I haven't been able to see my patients in person since March because of the virus. But right after the election, one of my clients said that he voted for Biden but didn't want to. He told me that he said Biden won because Biden would make his Social Security payments go down. He was sad that Biden won. I asked him why he voted for Biden, if he was worried about that, and he said that one of the helpers just came in and filled out his ballot for Biden for him." Bombshell voter fraud revelation in Wisconsin. To the best of our knowledge or the intelligence we have provided, no FBI investigation, no DOJ investigation. This is News Talk's 1130.iheart.com. Disability service coordinator blows whistle on vote fraud in group homes called granny farming. We have long been talking about that here, which would correlate with the 1,774% increase that we saw for people over the age of 90 registering during a pandemic in battleground states. So Rudy Giuliani laid out 9 key points. The first of which was observers were allegedly prevented from watching mail-in ballots from being open. This is the easiest point to prove of all the different allegations out there, and it's unconstitutional. Giuliani said that many mail-in ballots were opened without observers being able to check that they were properly signed, a key protection against fraud. Those votes, he said, were, quote, null and void, especially where the envelopes had been discarded, making recounts useless.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Can we talk about Cortez? Yes, let's talk about AOC. Your response, you have been hitting hard with your amazing videos, the insanity of political correctness, of cancel culture. Does cancel culture, is it adequate enough a phrase when we're talking about AOC tweeting out that it's time to make lists of Trump supporters?
Okay, tag me in, Sebi. Can I go off? Tag me in, can I?
You can go off.
Yes, okay. First of all, I don't take her that seriously because let's be real, I don't think she can read that well to be making any lists I'd be worried about. Plus, she is the dumbest human being I've ever met or seen on the internet. I haven't met her. She's so stupid. She probably thinks that COVID-19 is Elon Musk's new kid. She is so stupid. She thinks that Pfizer is a mumble rapper and we need to learn his TikTok dances. AOC is so dumb. She thinks that the Bitcoin bull run is an actual event and we need to save the bulls. I don't know how to process her level of stupid, so I just laugh at her.
Those are some good lines. Look, she is risible. She is funny. I'm not sure those are the coolest dance moves I've ever seen.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada, on November the 30th, last day of 2020's penultimate month. Confusing all the Steelers fans out there. And the Cleveland Browns are 8-3. One of their victims, the Philadelphia Eagles, beats close to the heart of Robert Costa, reporter extraordinaire, host of Washington Week in Review, colleague at NBC and the Washington Post, but Eagles fan. Hello, Robert. Good morning to you. Merry Christmas. We're in the Christmas season.
Merry Christmas. Is the NFC East even a real division anymore? I'm not sure.
I loved it when, during the Eagles game, one of the booth, I think it was Aikman, said the NFC least. But nobody's out of contention, right? Even the Eagles are still alive.
I know. I mean, the Giants with their terrible record. I mean, I don't even want to get into it.
Oh, just go with the Browns, Robert. All the bandwagon's got plenty of space after 20 years. There's lots of seating capacity.
There's a team in Cleveland. I thought they moved to Baltimore.
That's what. Oh, et tu, Robert. Et tu, Brute. I am curious about Operation Warp Speed. Everyone is focused on the president and President-elect Biden's picks, and I am of the opinion President-elect Biden ought to get whoever he wants, except at defense. I want to make sure we have a serious person at defense. But, Neera Tanden's a liberal. By all means, give him Neera Tanden. I'm not going to be involved in any of the Andy Puzder payback sort of stuff. I just want someone good at defense. Who is it going to be? What is your reporting on defense? It really does matter.
It's taking some time. It's taking time, clearly. I mean, the expectation was it would be Michelle Flournoy, and that she has not been nominated yet. So whether this is part of a rollout or there's some issue, I don't have fresh reporting on that, but it is interesting. It's intriguing that that's one of the places they still haven't made a name.
Do you remember that back, you were probably in college when John Tower, no, you weren't, you were probably in junior high when John Tower was nominated to be Secretary of Defense for George H.W. Bush. And it was the first time, I believe it was the first time in modern times that a senator was defeated for a nomination. And that was because the Senate worries about the Secretary of Defense more than any other position because it's chain of command position. Does that reserve still exist? You cover the Hill as well as the White House. Does that concern over SecDef still remain deep in the Senate institutional memory?
It does, and McConnell was there for the Tower nomination and that fight, and he's someone who does care about defense, and he's running the Senate at this moment unless something changes in Georgia. So I think you're right. I mean, the defense position more than anything, you could see Republicans on OMB, labor, other cabinet slots kind of giving Biden who he wants. But on defense, they know that a lot of their voters, but a lot of their supporters in the business community are in that area, and they're not just going to give a rubber stamp.
I am confused a little bit, Bob Costa. I like Neera Tanden. I've done a lot of television with her. We don't agree on anything, but she's kind of just a pugilist in the political wars, and she's very smart, Yale lawyer, I think. Why does the left hate her so much? I mean, they really are coming after her with hatchets, and I did not anticipate that.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you define the left. I mean, she has a lot of supporters who are liberal Democrats. She runs the Center for American Progress, which is a left-leaning organization. So it's more about that kind of divide temperamentally, not necessarily ideologically, between the Sanders wing and the more liberal Democratic wing. It's for those who don't follow it day to day, it can seem like a monolith, but there are nuances and cracks and differences in between those different groups.
Did she run over Bernie's dog? It's really just the Sanders people don't like her. And I've always liked Neera, even though we don't agree on anything, because I've always assumed politics stops at the personal. I did not like what they did to Andy Puzder at all 4 years ago, but I'm not a revenge guy. I think presidents get their appointments if they're within the acceptable parameters of American politics. What happened there with Bernie Sanders and Neera Tanden?
Well, I think it's a mixture of factors. Remember, her emails were leaked as part of the Podesta emails.
And I did not know that. I did not know that.
Well, not all of her emails. Her emails to Podesta, and she was close to Podesta, obviously through her ties with the Center for American Progress. And so she's always been seen as more establishment Democrat, even though her politics are left Democrat. And so the anger is really among some kind of activist types who see her as an ally of the Clintons. And she is an ally of the Clintons, but she hasn't defined herself politically as a Clintonite in the sense of politics and the New Democrats.
Yeah, Bob, I'd love your opinion on this and your reporting on this. I've been telling my friends, Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan are center-left traditionalists. They're Clinton appointees. They're really, though they serve President Obama like they serve President Clinton and Secretary Clinton, they are more Clinton than they are Obama, and they are not the Ben Rhodes wing of the foreign policy establishment, which is, again, it's sort of like what we just talked about, the Bernie Sanders-Neera Tanden split. Do you agree with me that Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken are closer to the middle than Ben Rhodes and, say, Susan Rice?
Certainly a return to the center of the Democratic foreign policy establishment. I was watching a C-SPAN video the other day. There's sometimes great to just go through those archives of Tony Blinken giving a speech at the National Press Club years ago talking about President Clinton and talking about how involved President Clinton was in kind of the national security speech-making process. Blinken was a national security speechwriter at the time. And you see Blinken, to your point, has been in these fields of Democratic politics, but in particular the Clinton wing of the Democratic foreign policy establishment for a long time. And that was a wing that was interventionist. Clinton intervened in foreign affairs, and Blinken is not against that in some kind of, he's probably more interventionist, Blinken, based on his experience in decisions, than President Trump.
I completely agree. I heard Tony Blinken at the Aspen Institute before it just fell off the left-wing cliff. And I thought to myself, that's a moderate guy. He's still holding the wake for the JCPOA, but he's a very center-left sort of person. So, Robert, when it comes down to it, Team Biden is taking shape. A lot of it echoes what we've seen from the Democratic Party for a long time. Are the squad upset? Do you get the sense that they are disappointed?
I mean, I think they're going to be more disappointed if the climate initiatives that they want are not included in some way in a major stimulus or infrastructure deal in 2021. I don't see the squad getting up and on every single Biden nominee. It just doesn't. First of all, the squad is not a Senate powerhouse; it's a House power. So they only have so much say over the nominees, but they're going to have some say over a major piece of legislation that comes next year on spending. They're fire for that.
Bob, do you know how many Republicans I asked Susan Page this yesterday in a green room. Is it 214? Is it 213? Is it 215? How many Republicans are there? Honestly, I look every day and nobody seems willing to project out because of the New York upstate race, and Iowa does appear to be the Republican winner. What do you think it is?
It's very close. I mean, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but those races are outstanding, and it could end up being single digit.
I think it is. I think they're going to only be able to lose 4 or 5 Democrats. I want to close with this, Robert Costa. The Senate, they always refer to it as a club of 100. It's not. It's actually a club of 200 because almost every senator has a spouse, and those spouses mingle, mix, become friends, and they stay together for a long period of time. I wonder how Dr. Jill Biden fits into this administration. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I know that she's a key player in the campaign. So she is a confident. I'm not saying she's going to be a partner in power in the same way Secretary Clinton ran as First Lady healthcare in 1993. But that being said, there are 2 people who Biden really turns to a lot. Valerie, his sister, and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden. And she's going to play in that role, and she has a real sense of where he wants to go and in terms of his campaign operation, his politics. But she's not a policy person. She still wants to be a teacher, so she's not going to be out front on every single policy. But don't count her out. I mean, this is not some idle person on the sideline. She was fully engaged in the campaign, and to me, that's indicative of how she'll be at the White House.
And I think she knows the Senate as well as any spouse who spent as long as she did as a member of the Club of 200. I really do think people are overlooking that. Bob Costa, follow him on Twitter at Costa Reports. Merry Christmas, Robert. Good to have you. Let me remind everyone, it's Cyber Monday, and I want to do a market check brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Poor Eagles fans. They're not going to be buying as much Eagle gear as they did last year. AndrewandTodd.com, the world's best lenders if you're buying a house, refinancing a house, getting a reverse mortgage. If you're a veteran, you don't want to put any money down and you just want to get 100% financing, AndrewandTodd.com. If you want to become a non-occupying co-borrower, meaning you're going to help your son or daughter, grandson or granddaughter buy a house when interest rates are this low, AndrewandTodd.com, or with Sierra Pacific, you can call them at 888-888-1172. Best phone number in the business, 888-888-1172. On Friday, the Dow was up 37, the NASDAQ 114, and the S&P 8. As Black Friday disappointed, but Cyber Monday is not going to disappoint. Overseas, the German index is up 0.5%. England has opened up as well. I expect the online retailers to have a great day today. We will see as the day progresses, and I will see you after the break. Use this opportunity to go to AndrewandTodd.com and then come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Millions are praying, millions from around the world are praying for this election, which is obviously not yet settled. What do you see happening right now that people like me might be unaware of? What do you, being where you are and being close to the center, what do you see cooking?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt that this election, I don't use this word lightly, was stolen. President Donald Trump outperformed every part of the country that was not a focal point for Joe Biden to get enough votes electorally through the Electoral College to get over the top. Some great examples, Eric, and we have this incredible whiteboard here where we've been going through all of this. I mean, President Donald Trump outperformed Obama. He outperformed Mitt Romney, John McCain, and even his own numbers in 2016 dramatically. Miami-Dade County, President Donald Trump overperformed by 15 points versus 2016. He did better in New York City, Eric. He did better by about 5 or 6 points in New York City. And my best example for all of this, Eric, and this is just the most logical way that I could show it, is I'm from the Midwest. I know Madison, Wisconsin really well. And Madison, Wisconsin, of course, is where the University of Wisconsin-Madison is. And so in 2008, at the height of the Obama movement, President Barack Obama got 71% of the support in Dane County, Wisconsin. Joe Biden got 76% this time and 60,000 more votes. And the campus is closed, Eric. How is that possible?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment. Yesterday, the governor of California imposed a month-long 10 p.m. curfew for nearly everybody in the most populous state in America, California. And I just take a lot of comfort in knowing that the Trump administration delivered essentially a vaccine that in normal times would have taken 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored.
Welcome back, America. Remember this from Love Actually? Remember the young boy hitting the drums? That young boy has a lead role as Benny in The Queen's Gambit. That's why you think you know him if you're watching The Queen's Gambit. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt pointed that out to me. We have been watching an hour of The Queen's Gambit for the last week. That's been our show. Interesting. It's sparked a chess renaissance in the United States that will run its course. Yesterday, the Washington Post published an editorial by Kevin Bain, B-A-I-N-E. I have tweeted it out. I hope you're following me on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. And I want to read it to you because it's so on the mark. It is a bullseye piece. Kevin Bain does not have a Twitter account. He's a partner at Williams Conley, one of the greatest law firms in the United States. He's a First Amendment lawyer. He writes, the Supreme Court's recent decision to enjoin the governor of New York from enforcing strict numerical limits on church gatherings has triggered strong reaction from liberal commentators who see it as a signal of the court's shift to the right. The immediate impact of the decision was limited. The governor had lifted the challenge restrictions just days before the decision was announced. So reasonable arguments could be made that the injunction should have been denied because it was unnecessary, Chief Justice Roberts' point, or granted because it was harmless, Justice Kavanaugh's point. But there is no question that the injunction reflects a shift in the court's thinking about the First Amendment's guarantee of free exercise of religion. What is most notable about this shift is that it is seen as a move to the right rather than to the left. And it goes on to argue that times change, conservative judges now are more inclined to grant religious exemptions from generally applicable laws, and liberals are more prepared to defer to legislative and executive judgments that have the effect of restricting religious practice. At the risk of oversimplifying a complicated area, liberals and conservatives have seemed to switch sides, and approaches that were once seen as solidly liberal are now denounced as right-wing. What to make of all of this? First, think twice before applying labels. I agree with that completely. But understand as well, no one on the court was more religious than Scalia, Justice Scalia, and Justice Scalia wrote the most restrictive religious freedom opinion. It's called Employment Division v. Smith. It's the one I've written about and lectured the most about in my professorial capacity. I hate the decision. I want it to be reversed. But it was a Scalia decision, and I have my reasons for believing why he issued it. But what Mr. Bain is writing about, and what I want people to understand, is religious liberty isn't a conservative or liberal proposition. It's central to the American idea, and you ought to celebrate it. And that injunction that Andrew Cuomo put out, which John Roberts said we don't have to strike down because he struck it down, Cuomo did himself. So it's a moot case, and Justice Kavanaugh kind of said it's a wrong, capable of repetition yet evading review, and Justice Gorsuch just slammed it. Look, it was a bad injunction. People must go to church. This is the last day, for example, that Catholics, if they receive communion and visit a cemetery and do their work, their prayerful work, aid the church suffering. That's all Catholic talk for people. It's the last day of the month. You can do that. And so you can't do it if the church is closed. You can't get communion. So it matters a lot to people. And so it's not a liberal or conservative issue. It's a question about, do you take faith seriously? And Americans should, even if they're stone cold atheists, they ought to understand how much the country, I've just finished reading The Galleys of Archbishop Chaput's new book coming out, Things Worth Dying For. It's not out yet. I've just been doing the review copy. It's a marvelous call. It's chilling as to what's happening to religious liberty in the United States. It is a marvelous call on people to be awake to the dangers ahead. And the Bain piece is, I've tweeted out, read it, send it to everybody. You can be the most liberal person who's listening to the show today, and you still ought to love the free exercise clause. You can be the most conservative person today and the most stone-cold atheist and still love the free exercise clause. America was built on religious pluralism. And at Christmas time, when most people are going through a secular Christmas, many people are still celebrating the reason for the season, to borrow the cliche, and that reason has been protected by the Supreme Court, and I say hallelujah, amen. I'll be right back. We have another new member of Congress coming up, Representative-elect Yvette Herrell from New Mexico. I'm trying to talk to as many of these new members as possible. Stay tuned to The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of The Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Prison Fellowship. Click on the Angel Tree banner at the top of HughHewitt.com.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Millions are praying, millions from around the world praying for this election, which is obviously not yet settled. What do you see happening right now that people like me might be unaware of? What do you, being where you are and being close to the center, what do you see cooking?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt that this election, I don't use this word lightly, was stolen. President Donald Trump outperformed every part of the country that was not a focal point for Joe Biden to get enough votes electorally through the Electoral College to get over the top. Some great examples, Eric, and we have this incredible whiteboard here where we've been going through all of this. I mean, President Donald Trump outperformed Obama. He outperformed Mitt Romney, John McCain, and even his own numbers in 2016 dramatically. Miami-Dade County, President Donald Trump overperformed by 15 points versus 2016. He did better in New York City, Eric. He did better by about 5 or 6 points in New York City. And my best example for all of this, Eric, and this is just the most logical way that I could show it, is I'm from the Midwest. I know Madison, Wisconsin really well. And Madison, Wisconsin, of course, is where the University of Wisconsin-Madison is. And so in 2008, at the height of the Obama movement, President Barack Obama got 71% of the support in Dane County, Wisconsin. Joe Biden got 76% this time and 60,000 more votes. And the campus is closed, Eric. How is that possible?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment. Yesterday, the governor of California imposed a month-long 10 p.m. curfew for nearly everybody in the most populous state in America, California. And I just take a lot of comfort in knowing that the Trump administration delivered essentially a vaccine that in normal times would have taken 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. You're going to work on the last day of November, but it's really the first week of the Christmas season because it's the first broadcast day live of the post-Thanksgiving period, and I always play Christmas music for the next 30 days. And I also am introducing you to brand new members of Congress elected by the Republicans in what was a red wave for the House that Kevin McCarthy and Steve Scalise and Tom Emmer organized with the help of people like my next guest. Yvette Herrell is the Congresswoman-elect from New Mexico's 2nd Congressional District. Congresswoman Herrell, welcome. It's great to have you on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm glad to make your acquaintance. I've been talking with your colleagues. Would you tell us a little bit about your district and a little bit about you?
Yes, so the district is very large. It's one of the largest that's not an individual state. So it actually runs from the Arizona border to the Texas border, and then really about half the state, the southern half of the state. So it's a very large district, and it's very diverse in industry, people. We have a large production of oil and gas in the district. On the east side of the district, we share part of that Permian Basin. And then we also have a lot of agricultural opportunities in our district with pecans, ranching, chili, onions. And then a third part of the district that's very interesting is the border wall. We obviously have a border, we border Mexico, so that makes it unique. And then, of course, the Department of Defense. We have 3 bases inside this district. So just a lot going on. I grew up, born and raised in New Mexico, and I actually served in the New Mexico House for 8 years and then gave up that seat to run for Congress. I'm in real estate. I do a lot of investing in real estate, and I also have a real estate license. So just great opportunity to be in a position to be the voice of not only New Mexico, but America, because it's very humbling and such a huge responsibility for all of us.
Congresswoman Herrell, most of America knows New Mexico through Breaking Bad. Really, it's the only, it's the one show that's ever been set in New Mexico. Now, my brother-in-law lived for a time, was stationed in New Mexico and lived in a time in Albuquerque and the outside and in Santa Fe and the outside of that. And I have friends over at the National Lab and friends at St. John's College in Santa Fe. I know the state a little bit, but not a lot of people know the Enchantment State. I mean, you're coming into a city, into a beltway where I'm broadcasting from, that really doesn't know New Mexico from, New England. If they're from California, it's just a different part of the world.
It really is. And, I'm hoping that I can help educate your listeners and really make them understand that it's a beautiful state. We have everything from the high deserts to the ski areas. It's just geographically, it's beautiful. And you're right, we do a lot of filming in New Mexico. So there's been several movies filmed there. And, of course, that Breaking Bad series was the one that everybody talks about. It wasn't a movie, of course, the series. But it's really a great, we have two really important things in my district, the Carlsbad Caverns and the White Sands National Monument. So those are 2 wonders of the world, if you will. Yep. So, it's just an exciting state to live in, and really a friendly state, such great people. I'm just so honored and grateful to be the voice of the people in New Mexico. And I know that this was a great opportunity with the help of, like you mentioned, Tom Emmer, Steve Scalise, Kevin McCarthy, all coming in and really helping us to flip this seat and turn it back to conservative hands. So I really did appreciate all the help that they gave me. But there was just a real hunger in our district. I mean, we ran on the platform of, like I did when I was a state rep, pro-God, pro-life, pro-gun, pro-business, pro-family. People understood that with everything happening through Corona, that the government was really starting to strip away at our rights. And certainly in New Mexico, we've seen a little bit of a heavy hand, if you will, from our own governor, keeping our state shut down, our unemployment rate highest in the nation. And so people started understanding that it does matter who's making decisions for us on any level of government. And so there was a real enthusiasm, and of course having President Trump at the top of the ticket was very beneficial as well.
So talk to me a little bit, Congresswoman-elect Herrell, about coming to D.C. for freshman orientation. What was that like? I mean, most people dream about running for Congress. They never do it. A lot of people who are young are listening to the show in the backseat of the car on the way to high school, and they're hearing a Congresswoman-elect who got it done, and you went through the House of Representatives in New Mexico to do it. What was it like to walk into the House, which will be your home for the next 2 years?
Yeah, it's very surreal. In fact, I kind of have to remind myself that this is really happening. And it really is just such a huge responsibility. But I have a passion for serving people. I have a passion for bringing this common sense approach, a business sense to the people of New Mexico and, of course, now the nation. And I recognized when I served in the New Mexico House that my vote did not just affect the district that I represented in New Mexico. It represented the entire state of New Mexico. And just like coming into Washington, D.C., the vote isn't just about the New Mexico district, it's about the nation. And I said this as I was running for office, we are really fighting for our one nation under God. And it's time that we bring our principles and our values back to the forefront and really bring the voice. But I would just say, believe in yourself. And for me, the passion is serving. And it's one of those things, follow your dreams. And what really was, I think, the turning point, and I had somebody ask me this when I first got to D.C. last week, or the week before last for the orientation, what was the proudest moment? And I said, the proudest moment was when I recognized that people in the district and others believed in me and my ability the way I believed in me. And it's very empowering, and it's, again, just so humbling to know that you're going to be making the decisions for people. And it kind of, I got to tell you, when I went to the Capitol the first time after I got here for the first week of orientation, it is kind of emotional. You do kind of tear up and think, wow, I'm here. And then just what's at stake in terms of our nation and the importance of this. So, yeah, it's very exciting, though, very, very exciting.
And the most closely divided House in modern times, I believe, and so every vote will count. I am going to have on Congressman Emmer tomorrow, and for the audience, he is the chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee, who recruits candidates now for the 2022 ballot. And he's really, along with McCarthy and Scalise, one of the three magicians of the red wave in the House. How did they persuade you, Congresswoman Herrell, and who do you think Congressman Emmer and his team are going to be looking for to persuade to run in districts that aren't even drawn yet? How do they go and recruit in this situation?
Yeah, they really have been unbelievable. Now, I ran in 2018, and if you will remember, I was one of those races who I was declared the winner, won that night on the election. And then what's happening right now, what we're seeing play out all over the nation, is what happened to me in our district in 2018. We were declared winner, and then they found absentee ballots, and it ended up flipping. So for me, I went back to people that supported me, grassroots, to donors, to supporters, talked to them, talked to, my family, prayed about it. And then I flew back to D.C. in January, right after the 2018 elections, and spoke with Chairman Emmer and Kevin McCarthy and told them that I was going to make another run at it. And they were thrilled. I mean, they were very supportive. So they didn't have to recruit me very hard. But I tell you what, they have somehow found the right recipe for recruiting. The diversity and the freshman class that came in this year, amazing. More women than we've ever had before, veterans. And I look at all of us, I'm so proud to serve with not only this freshman class, but now to stand next to our men and women, such as Debbie Lesko and Jim Jordan and Andy Biggs and, all of those people that have been here holding the line. So it's they've certainly found the magic formula, if you will, and you know what? They believe in the candidates that they're recruiting, and they're helping them, and I think that just speaks volumes, because this is a very difficult thing to do. It takes a lot of time, and people that think that, you believe that all these people are your friends, and once you start running for office, you really they say you'll find out who your friends are. It's a tough thing to do, but I say stick with it and trust God. and be true to yourself through the entire process. But I tell you, McCarthy and Scalise and Emmer are amazing. And they actually all three came out to my district, and we did different events, and that was very helpful. So they really are not only recruiting and helping financially, but they're engaged, with their time. And so they have been amazing, and thank goodness for their efforts.
And I think President Trump, I said this on Meet the Press yesterday, he gets credit for this red wave, too. He turned out more Republicans than have ever turned out. I am curious, though, about how much energy it takes. I want people who are thinking about making lives out of running for office. The reason I have just never been interested is I go to bed at 7:30, 8, 9 o'clock. I mean, I'm just not a nighttime person. And you got to go 24/7 for 2 years when you're running for the House, right?
You do. And I tell you, for me, it's been a long road because we ran for the 2018 seat, and it is long days. And when you come from a district like mine, it's 5.5 hours from where I live to the edge of the district. And I live right in the middle of the district. So from end to end, it's almost a 10-hour drive if I went from the Arizona border to the Texas border. So there's a lot of windshield time. And you have to really have a passion for serving. This is about the people. It has always been, for me, people over politics, but it does take a great deal of time, and you've got to thicken your skin because it's, if you're sensitive to what people say about you, this isn't the right place for you to be because, again, just the horrible campaign ads, people that you thought were your friends, everybody's got an opinion on how you need to be running your race, and we had an amazing team who always made me look great. And so very small team. Everybody did more than they should have. And we just really kept our heads down and stayed focused. But it is a lot of work and not a lot of sleep. You're absolutely right.
Congressman, I'm so glad you mentioned your team. People don't win alone. And usually your chief staffer stays behind to run the district office. But a campaign team for Congress is, it's the training ground for the future Karl Roves and the future David Axelrods out there. I'm sure you had hundreds of volunteers and a staff of a dozen. I'm so glad you mentioned them. They don't get often mentioned.
Oh, you know what? I talk about the team all the time, and like you just mentioned, not just our team. In fact, election night, I couldn't say enough about not only just our team, but I said in every single community that I represented and across the state and across the nation, we had people that were prayer warriors. We had people writing notes of encouragement. We had in our state door knockers, in and out of state, phone callers, people that put up signs. It is not a one-man show. And I would tell people, look, I've got the easy part. I get to go and speak to audiences and be it's like being the front man in a band. I said, but there is no way to do this without having a good, valuable, trusted team. And then, again, those people around you. And our district is so huge. So it was so refreshing to be able to go into various communities and know that I had people there that were helping me and fighting for me because it is not something that you can just say, oh, I'm going to do this and just do it. And we saw, we got outsent by our Democrat opponent almost 4-1. So I'm here to encourage people. Don't let the amount of money, scare you away from this because it is now coming down to grit, determination, and what people believe in. And right now people are believing in their nation and they want an America for their future and their kids the way that we grew up in a nation where we had opportunity and choices.
That is so great. Congresswoman Yvette Herrell, elect, keep coming back. It's great to make your acquaintance, and God bless you and your team. It's a wonderful way to start the Christmas season. Congratulations. You can follow her at YvetteForCongress.com, on Twitter at Yvette, YVETTE, 4 Congress. And when she sets up shop, don't forget your relief factor. If you're going out on your commute this morning, please don't forget. You got to take your Icarian, Curcumin, Resveratrol, Omega. My daughter-in-law asked me yesterday about it. I said, I take it every single day. Yes, I do. I really believe in it. If your knees pop and they make noises because you're above 60, you really need your relief factor. But even if you're young, you need it. If you're going to be active, if you're going to be working out, if you're going to be working, relieffactor.com. Get the starter pack for $19.95. Come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Chris is in San Antonio, Texas. Chris, you're on the Larry Yoda Show.
Oh, wow. What an honor to speak with the great Eldersky. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Chris.
I guess my question is, can you imagine if this goes to the courts and then it goes to Congress and then it goes for President Trump like we all know it should?
Chris, mass suicide. Mass suicide.
This whole cities are going to be burning to the ground.
Their ears would explode. I mean, it would be catastrophic for the left if Donald Trump were awarded the election. You think we feel that the election was fraudulent? What do you think they're going to feel? They're going to go absolutely bonkers. They believe that the Russians not only interfered, but 78% of them believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election, even though our intelligence committee has never reached that conclusion. So they're going to go absolutely bonkers. Remember what Hillary advised Joe Biden?
So we've got to have a massive legal operation. I know the Biden campaign is working on that. We have to have poll workers, and I urge people who are able to be a poll worker. We have to have our own teams of people to counter the force of intimidation that the Republicans and Trump are going to put outside polling places. This is a big organizational challenge, but at least we know more about what they're going to do. And, you know, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
They would go absolutely ballistic.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
And I hope that this does not explode to the volcanic expectations that I have. And it's actually, I'm unbelievably worried where this is going. Because normal people, regular Americans, are not going to tolerate what is happening right now in our country. And what's happening is the widespread criminality from within our own government. That's where things start to get very, very dangerous. And normal people and regular people that work their tail off to do the right thing, to not even get speaking, not even get parking, to not even get speeding, to people that follow the law, they see this Nevada cash for vote scheme. They see the granny farming that whistleblowers have now said exists in in Wisconsin. They see the piles of dead voters that allegedly voted in these states. They see the 1,774% increase for older people, that 90-plus-year-olds that register to vote in Pennsylvania, most of which register to vote online. You're right. They see the National Democrat Party suggesting re-education camps for Trump supporters. They see the New York Times article that says, "Reach out to Trump supporters, I try." They also then see the candidate that they voted for, Donald Trump.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. First day of the Christmas music season. Tim Alberta has got to be a Christmas Carol guy. I just know it. Are you Tim? You a Christmas music nut?
Well, I thought you were. I thought you might have meant a Christmas Carol guy like the George C. Scott classic, and I am very much one of those guys. A little less of a Christmas music guy because my wife starts playing it in September. But other than that, I am fully in the season.
I am with you, by the way. George C. Scott as Scrooge is the best. The Muppet Christmas is the absolute best Christmas. Tim, I wanted to ask you, because you wrote the book American Carnage, and a lot of that had to do with the Hill. I have been pointing out to people that the United States Senate is referred to as a club of 100. It's actually a club of 200 because they almost all have spouses. Dr. Jill Biden has been a member of that club for a very long time. How do you think she's going to fit into the new administration? What do you think her role is going to be?
Boy, that's a good question, and I'll be completely honest. I don't know. I have had no conversations about that. I don't really have any special insight into it. I know that she's going to keep her job teaching in Northern Virginia, and I would assume, and there's been a little bit of chatter about this, Hugh, I would assume that as First Lady, her sort of big domestic priority will be around teaching and teachers and early education, maybe even post-secondary education, affordability of education, community college, things like that. But as far as working the Hill and specific policies, boy, I have no idea.
I went to a senator retreat, and I struck up a conversation with Mrs. Cornyn and learned a lot about how the Senate worked. And I mean, that spouses club is deeply intertwined, very nonpartisan, and it's long time friendships because most senators stay at least 2 terms. I mean, they get to know each other and love each other. I mean, it's a very different ecosystem than the House, Tim Alberta.
Yeah. Well, look, and this is, Hugh, I've written a little bit about this, and I'll probably write some more about it at some point. But there's a real case study to be done here on the Senate as an institution and its sort of unraveling in recent years from what it once was and how it was very distinct and different from the House, and how that sort of backward trajectory, or downward trajectory, I suppose you'd say, how that intersects now with a Biden presidency, because that is, like, more than anything else, Joe Biden is an institutionalist, and he is someone deeply invested in sort of Washington's functionality, yes, but specifically in the Senate. And I remember I did this interview with him a couple of years ago where he almost sounded like he was about to cry, talking about how late in the Obama presidency, when he went over to the Senate for a meeting with some of his old buddies over there, how he realized that the Senate-only dining area. Now, this is not to be confused with the Senate dining room where you can bring guests, you can bring family, you can bring staff, lobbyists, whatever. There was once a small little cubby, the senator's dining room, where there was just a buffet table set up with food, and it was senators only. Nobody else was allowed in there. And for, decades, that was the space where these guys would sit down with each other, and they would talk sports, and they would talk family, and they would talk life, and they became friends. And to Joe Biden, the demolition of that space, because it wasn't really being used anymore, that was the sort of symbolic, death knell of the Senate that he knew and loved. And I remember, Hugh, him describing this to me in very emotional terms. I only mention this to say that I think it'll be very interesting, and this goes back to my theory, I've been saying for months. I don't know that a 51-49 Republican Senate is the worst thing for Joe Biden. I think in many ways it almost gives Biden, as much as it would make the left crazy, it gives Biden some plausible deniability to just put any sort of big ideological initiatives on hold and just focus on some of this core sort of institution building, lowering the temperature, restoring the soul of America, all this stuff he talked about in the campaign that some people roll their eyes at. I think it's very real to him, and I think it's something he wants to spend a lot of time on.
Now, I don't want people to be triggered here. I was on with Michael Eric Dyson yesterday, and I know what Michael Dyson thinks of the old Senate, which was segregationist. We're talking about the post-segregationist Senate, where there was still a familiarity and a reciprocity and a courtesy that began to vanish when Bill Frist threatened the filibuster nuclear option, and then Harry Reid used it. I don't know if that can be put back together again, Humpty Dumpty. What do you, if it does, the spouses will have a lot to do with it. 30 seconds, Tim Alberta. What do you think? Can it be put back together again?
I think it's really hard, Hugh. I mean, look, I think with any of these things, once the genie's out of the bottle, it's very hard to put back in, which is why this whole voter fraud, crazed conspiracy theory stuff that we've seen in the last few weeks is so dangerous, not because it's going to change the outcome of an election, but because it's very difficult to undo that damage. And I think the same could probably be said for these institutional norms in the Senate.
Well, one of the ways to undo it is not to always talk about it. It's to talk about the upside, not the downside. Tim Alberta, always a pleasure. Politico correspondent. Follow him on Twitter at Tim Alberta. I hope he writes that book on the Senate. He wrote a great book about the House. I hope he writes one about the Senate in this period of time. America, I'll be back on the first day of December. Don't forget, rabbit, rabbit, rabbit. Have a good end to the month devoted to those church suffering out there if you're Catholic, and to everybody else. Merry Christmas. We're on our way. Don't forget Angel Tree at the top of HughHewitt.com. You can't do a Christmas party. Don't be a secret Santa for someone you don't know very well. Be a secret Santa for a child who has a parent in prison at Angel Tree at HughHewitt.com.